Today we're going to be doing a deep dive. Are elevators permissible to be used on Shabbos or Yom Tov? They call them a Shabbos elevator. Wow, it sounds so religious and so frum. Wow, it's so holy. The elevator becomes holy. It's a Shabbos elevator. What is the story over here? So I'll tell you in a nutshell. If you're not interested, you just want to tune out, I'll tell you in 30 seconds. All right? Most rabbis, poskim nowadays, and we're going to be doing a deep dive on the reasons why, say that it is in fact, surprise, surprise, prohibited. However, some say it's okay. Even those who say that it's prohibited, in a situation if a person is very sick, old, weak, unable to walk, they're allowed to use the elevator. Even so, they have to be careful for certain things as well. And when we say using the elevator, we have to specify that this is referring to that, of course, they're not going to, God forbid, touch any buttons, or they're not going to cause the door to now remain open or open. The elevator is stopping at every single floor, hence the Shabbos elevator. Or you have other people who aren't Jewish who are going in the elevators are going to be pushing the buttons anyway, so you're just following their lead. That basically is the discussion when it comes to elevators. And now we're going to see inside what would be the potential problems with the elevator, what are the solutions, what's going on. So over here in Siman Reish Mem Ches, what we're up to, I made an elevator folder. We're going to run through a few tshuvas over here on the topic. Let's start with none other than Rabbi Moshe Feinstein himself, a very short tshuva over here in Orach Chaim in Chelik Beis, and this is going to be in the middle of Siman Sadi Hey. There's going to be a small paragraph. I'm going to zoom it in so no one's got to squint over here. Ubedavar li kanis la elevator b'Shabbos v'Yom Tov. Says Rabbi Moshe regarding the topic, is it permissible to enter into an elevator on Shabbos or Yom Tov? If someone who is Jewish but he isn't religious, if he's going to enter into the elevator on himself and you're just going to be following him and he's going to be pushing buttons, that will be completely prohibited. However, if someone non-Jewish goes in, if someone who isn't Jewish goes in for his own needs, mutter medina. Technically speaking, it's permissible for you to go in aval osir mishum arzayin. Says Rabbi Moshe, reason number one why going in an elevator in Shabbos or Yom Tov is a problem, marasayin. In other words, people are going to look at you and say, oh, such and such a person went in the elevator, maybe you could even touch the buttons, it's a problem. And then Rabbi Moshe provides reason number two, which we're going to do a deeper dive on this as well, what the intention of Rabbi Moshe is over here. Ve'achers man dibarti im elu hayoidim b'chochma elevator v'noichochti sheyesh gam chashash iser medina mishum shekol hanichnos moisev avoida behalectri. He says, I spoke to experts in the field of those who are involved with making elevators and managing elevators and the engineering and the electrics involved. And they told me that there is a concern from the letter of the law, Me'ikr Hadin, because anyone who goes on an elevator increases the workload of the elevator, aka more electricity needs to be used, and we're going to be doing a deep dive on what the problem of more electricity being used is. And if the fellow fears heaven, and certainly if he's a scholar, there's a problem of desecrating Hashem's name. Mamish chillul Hashem over here. So Rabbi Moshe in this short paragraph is essentially providing three reasons why it would be prohibited to go in an elevator. Reason number one, Maris Ayin. Reason number two, you're increasing the electrical amount of electricity that needs to be used. Number three is that it's a chillul Hashem. This is the tshuva for Rabbi Moshe. Questions, comments?
No
Kailas
questions.
and tshuvas. Evan Yisrael in Siman Tez Zayin discuss this as well. In Chelik Test, Rabbi Yisrael Fisher. It's a psik reisha, it's also grama and indirectly causing something to happen can be a problem in their eyes. He goes through it. All tshuva, I went through it yesterday. The Sefer Ol Yisachar discusses this as well. Do you have any points that we need to delve into? Yeah, 1 point. In Siman Chav Zayin, Rabbi Yisachar Goldstein. And he says over here, he's actually lenient. We're going to be going through a few lenient opinions now. He's actually lenient, but makoy mitzvah, in a place where there's a mitzvah, he wants to say that it's going to be okay, especially if it's automatic. The mother of all leniencies, if we just skip over here to the Shemir Shabbos Kilchasa, is in fact Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach himself. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is of the opinion that you don't need to worry that you're going to be causing more of a fire over here, or more electricity to be used because it's a grama. You're not directly causing this to happen. And you could be soymech, you could rely on the fact that most people who go in, if it's just one person, it's not going to be adding that much weight. Someone's coming out, you're going in, it's really keeping it status quo. And therefore, it's not a psik ratio. What you're doing is not inevitably causing more electricity to be used, at least directly. And therefore, he wants to be lenient over here. It's possible there's no problem of ribu shirim. He goes through it also at the side point in the Shmir Shabbos Kolchasav here in Perek Chav Gimel. They discuss as well escalators. On Shabbos, they're going on their own anyways. He wants to be lenient. Most others say that it's going to be a prohibited. Even so, you need to be careful not to cause the doors to remain open or reopen. Of course, that would be a problem from the letter of the law. These are basically the most lenient opinions out there. The Ber Moshe, the Debetziner Rebbe, is actually very stringent, like other poskim. In the Shilos and Chuvas, Ber Moshe and Chelik Zayin, in Siman Kuf Zayin, specifically in this section called Kuntrus Electric. He says that this could be a problem from the Torah on a regular elevator. However, if it's just stopping at every single floor and he wants to jump in, that wouldn't be a problem mid'araisa from the Torah. That would be a problem rabbinically midrabanan. God forbid to do such a thing. Someone who does this is included in the category of someone who is desecrating the holiness of Shabbos and disgracing Shabbos. He says, many already have length about this topic. The Chazon Ish says, any electrical strength, any time that we cause the electricity to work harder is a problem because of boina. It's considered building, or perhaps stira, which means destroying. Seiser. There's a problem over here of heat. When a person goes in an elevator, he's going to be causing more electricity to be used, and he's going to be causing metal to get heated up. You ever plug a phone or a laptop in a socket, and then afterwards you touch the phone or the charger, it gets very hot? You're causing heat to happen. The Rambam writes in Hilchos Shabbos in Perek Yud Beis, Halacha Lamed Beis, someone who's machamim barzel kedei l'sarfo. If someone is heating up metal to now cause it to change its shape a little bit, that could be a problem of mavir, lighting a fire. If you're heating up metal for any need, it's a problem. It could be a problem of makalkel, also destroying. The Chazon Ish says that this will be a problem on Shabbos. Whether you go according to the Ravid or the Rambam. It could be a problem if you're heating it up yad saledesbo, so hot that if your hand would touch it, your hand would remove from it. Be a problem of bishul, almost like cooking. And he says, therefore, accordingly, it would be completely prohibited to go to an elevator because the more weight that goes in the elevator, kilafi ribui hamasen nisachel hazerem electri. According to the amount of weight that literally gets digested, nisachel hazerem, According to the amount of weight that goes in, the electrical flow digests more, gets hungrier. More electricity is used, and you're causing more of a weight to come in, which is completely prohibited. It doesn't even matter if it's, so to say, quote, a Shabbos elevator that's going on its own anyways. There's
Uh,
no heter with this. He says, Ve'in shum heter v'kol ha-mekel, mekel chayiv. Whoever is lenient, he's being lenient with his life. V'osid liyitin din al chillul Hashem. In the future, he's going to get judged for desecrating Hashem's name. Ubizui Shabbos kodesh, and disgracing Shabbos. Question.
no, no, I don't have a question. No. But I was just thinking about just like a subway train. Well, no, I know it's not. I guess it's not no good, but why? What is really wrong if someone was to open the door for you, like you have these emergency exits or something like that, and there's no turnstile or something like that. Getting on a subway train really, how much exertion is a subway train gonna do? You know, each person that gets on the train.
We
You
discussed
know,
we discussed multiple reasons a few sessions ago why it would be a problem. Buses and trains on
a
the
bus
screen
is
of the
different.
list that we had. Number one, it could go outside of the tchum. Number two, if it's a problem if the train is just stopping for a Jew.
All right, so it's not. It stops anyways. It's
Maris
in the
ayin. Problem three.
Mars sign. I
Publicly
guess is
making
the.
Shabbos like a weekday. Number four. Number five, your weight perhaps could cause extra energy to be used. Number six, Shabbos is a day of rest. That's the opposite. And then number seven, you could get sick on the train and throw up, which would detract from your own Shabbos. Seven reasons. That's it. Nice try, though. Maybe next time.
All right, well, tchum is not a problem in a subway.
It could very well be a problem. Subways, they go outside of the Tchum a lot of times. You're
Well,
talking about.
in New York City, maybe over
Yeah,
the.
they could go from New York City. They could go to Long Island. They
No,
still
but I'm
have some
saying the
subways.
subway, the subway in New York City
Yeah, could go, if it goes to
doesn't.
Brooklyn,
I don't.
that could very well be outside of the Tchum. Is what to look into there.
Um, uh, and it stops anyways at every stop. But all right, you might get sick on the train.
Yeah, that's why we got seven reasons. We got something in the chat over here.
Yeah.
outorah.org. Okay. Shabbos doors, elevators, exercise. Okay, we'll have to look at that when we're done looking at wherever. Where do you think they got their sources from? Same place where I'm getting them from. Comes along the Shar Mitzyonim Behalacha. It could actually very well be that I looked up more sources. I don't know. Shar Mitzyonim Behalacha says regarding elevators, for using them. For a very high floor, it's difficult to get up there. It's applicable also for little kids, schlepping the kids up. Well, no one asked them to move on the 50th floor. So someone's going to be doing the elevator anyways who isn't Jewish. Some Achronim, they want to say it's okay if most of the people traveling it aren't Jewish.
It's interesting because
Ask him to do anything. Rav Henkin permitted specifically for people who were weak and for davening b'tzibur.
it's interesting because I
Davening.
think that I don't quote me on this, but I think that Rabbi Moshe lived in a high-rise building. I'm saying, I think he lived on a low floor, but it's interesting because I think he lived in a high-rise building the whole time
Low
he was
floor
in New
though.
York. What?
So Rabbi Henkin, previous Pesach in America before Rabbi Moshe, he says if you're weaker, if you need it for davening, then you could. Big leniency. Others are obviously stringent on that for the minyan. The
I think too.
Shilas and Tshuva Sprihat Sadeh. He says that it's prohibited because now you're causing more electricity to be used. It's not, you cannot apply the line near le'echad, near le'meo. One candle could light another 100 candles. Doesn't work that way. This is talking about going in and out. Right? Once you're already in. But if you're gonna go in and then sometimes you're gonna cause the door to reopen or something like that, that is definitely a problem.
Hmm.
Better
Yeah, I
not
didn't
to
get.
use, he says, the escalators, the elevators, because the
Don't get
general
caught.
crowds of people might just mess up. They won't know the exact circumstances. It's also ziluso de Shabbos, no reason. It's belittling Shabbos. Charles Juva's Minchas Yitzchak, which we'll see momentarily, says it's possible that a person himself who is increasing the load, you're causing more of an electrical usage over there. That would be a problem also when it comes to an escalator as well. However, he says that he heard that this is not true. He said that he heard that you're not causing more electricity to be used by the elevator. He uses the same amount whether there's a lot of people or a little. This is obviously different than Rabbi Moshe Feinstein said this chuvas. I think that it's more like Rabbi Moshe. I notice even a difference when driving a car. I know how fast the thing could go when I just drive it by myself versus when I got the whole family in there. And I got little kids, especially when there's more adults in there. When there's several adults, I notice a difference on the vehicle. And it's slightly slower even. I notice a difference. Same thing probably with an elevator, I would imagine. I would go like Ramosha on that one. Shevet Alevi has a brief tshuva about this topic. Chelik Vav Siman Lamed Tes. If you could clarify that the actuality is, the mitzias is, that the more people in the elevator will not cause more electricity to be used, then we could already have a conversation. And someone who would rely on that, you shouldn't protest them. He says in parentheses, nevertheless, me, myself, I was never lenient with this. I was always stringent. If you're going up 10 floors, it's not such an easy thing. Even for people who are young, he says. Interesting. Kind of like he's just having a conversation over here.
All right, did your Zadie ever go? Are there elevators in Bnei Brak? What elevators in Bnei Brak? I don't know.
The silence in Shuvas Maharshag. In Chelik Beis, Simon Pei Beis discusses this. He's talking about a lift on Shabbos and Yom Tov. He says, I can't express I can't express an opinion. I don't have an opinion on the subject. He says, I'm not an expert with electricity. And how the lift works, how the elevator works. But he says, Lamais, at the end of the day, you should be stringent. Because there's a concern if we're going to permit going on these lifts and these elevators, God forbid a person could be lenient and start traveling all over the place with different forms of electricity. That would cause massive breaches. Yeah, Pirtzos Godel, chillul Shabbos v'Yom Tov, for desecrating Shabbos and Yom Tov for many matters.
Wait,
Better to daven in your house by yourself than to go to a shul with a minyan and go in an elevator.
they have I think they have minyanim on high in Williamsburg. There's high high rises, and I think they have minyanim on the higher floors for people on the high
The only
floors.
problem is halachically it's better to daven in a shul. See
I know, but
my Simin
we're-
Sadi 90 for that on Mishnah
but
Bruce.
as we're saying that it's
Yeah. Rabbi Dayan Yitzchak Weiss in the Shailus and Chuvas Minchas Yitzchak and Chele Gimel and Simin Samach. He says there's a potential problem when you're causing more electricity to be used of Havara and Kivui, which means burning, making a fire, and extinguishing. Based on the Rambam that we saw before. If you're heating up metal, that's going to be a toldos subcategory of burning. Could be destroying issues like the Shailus and Chuvas, Keren LeDavid writes, and Orach Chaim and Siman Pei. Therefore, could very well be a problem of mavir, making a fire over here. Even if you're just adding a little bit. That's like you're adding oil in a nair in a candle, which certainly would be prohibited on Shabbos. It's a problem of mavir, havara. It's the it's from the Torah, burning. It could also be a problem of extinguishing, kivui. When you're going down, it has to use energy and extinguish energy. Use less, maybe. Mavashel, cooking, perhaps. Boina, it could be a problem of building. Soiser. All these issues over here. When there's more people in the elevator, more electrical currents are being used. More electricity is being used. That's why even if the elevator is stopping at every single floor, nevertheless, toisefes masa netoisef gamkin azerim. By you walking in the elevator, you are causing the elevator to work harder and more electricity to be used, which is an issue because of one of the, I think it was 5 potential issues, aka burning, extinguishing, building, destroying, or cooking. Take your pick, have fun. Whichever isser you want to violate, whichever prohibition you want to be transgressing. It's also a problem of ziluso de Shabbos v'Yom Tov, disgrace to Shabbos and Yom Tov. This is the Minchas Yitzchak. And that's pretty much what I put together over here on the subject. Took me a couple hours going through all of this. It's a lot of pages. Number 1, number 2, I had to put all these files together, make these PDF files off of the Otzar Chachma. Plus, then I typed it up. Let's summarize what we just did today. Then we'll look at that article. We'll take questions and comments. And I just want to point out before we start the Chazar, this is one of those questions that a lot of people ask their rabbi. I hope that their rabbis did the amount of research that I did. Rabbi Moshe Feinstein rules it's prohibited to enter an elevator on Shabbos and Yom Tov when a wicked Jewish person enters, aka someone who isn't religious. When someone who isn't Jewish enters for his own needs, it is technically permissible to enter into the elevator. However, it is still prohibited to enter the elevator because of Maris Ayin. Rabbi Feinstein then says that he spoke with experts who know about elevators, and they said that anyone who enters in an elevator makes the elevator work more. As we discussed, got the sources down there that we saw accordingly would be prohibited from the letter of the law to enter an elevator on Shabbos and Yom Tov. It's a chillul Hashem, desecration of Hashem's name for someone who fears heaven and certainly a Torah scholar to go into an elevator on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Summary of reasons why it's prohibited to use an elevator on Shabbos. Number 1, Maris Ayin. Number 2, causing the elevator to work harder. Igros Moshe. Minchas Yitzchak relates that this is a problem because it's considered kindling / extinguishing or building / dismantling or cooking. More people in an elevator increases the elevator's need to increase its electrical flow, which is a problem because of the aforementioned reasons. Reason 3, chillul Hashem, desecration of Hashem's name. Reason 4, there's a problem of causing the elevator to remain open or reopen. Number 5, going in an elevator is a disgrace to Shabbos. Rabbi Moshe said that a healthy person who uses an elevator on Shabbos and Yom Tov will be judged in the future. Going in an elevator is prohibited and is not permissible in any way. Anyone who uses an elevator will be judged in the future for the desecration of Hashem's name he caused for disgracing Shabbos. Rabbi Henkin allowed people who are weak to go in an automatic elevator on Shabbos if people who aren't Jewish would be going in and out of the elevator anyways, and the Jew doesn't ask them to do anything. Or the elevator stops at every floor. Rabbi Yisachar Goldstein permits using an automatic elevator on Shabbos and Yom Tov for a mitzvah purpose. We clearly see that most poskim prohibit someone who is healthy from going in an elevator. However, Rosh Shlomo Zalman Auerbach is lenient. According to Rabbi Auerbach, there is no concern that going in the elevator will cause more burning or electricity to be used, since this is considered a grama or an indirect cause. Furthermore, one person entering to an elevator won't cause a drastic electrical difference. Any questions or comments before we look at that article?
Yeah, it doesn't look like that Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, maybe there's a later Shuva, talked about the quote unquote Shabbos elevator where it stops at every floor. There's still the eyin, I guess, of it burning more electricity.
Yeah.
But
You still
truth,
have all of his reasons. He said the burning of electricity. What else did he say? He said desecrating of Shabbos
well,
and
if
Rabbi Moshe. All of
everybody
it.
knows that it stops at every floor,
It, aren't the don't the actual Shabbos elevators work differently with electricity, or not at all?
No,
I have no
no,
idea.
no. Every
I
elevator, I know about electricity a little bit. I've put not just changed light bulbs, I've actually changed all of the wires also and put in raw and everything. And for someone who's not an electrician, I do more electricity than the average person. I don't do it often, but I have. Number one, number two, I know a lot about electric cars, obviously. So when the idea is that you have these strings by the elevator, they're very, very thick, and they are all hooked up to wires. And when there is more weight in the elevator, it's actually causing them to work harder, even slightly. So that's what I was saying before. When you're in the car, it the 0 to 60 takes longer if you floor it. You put the pedal all the way down when you have four adults in the car versus if you're just by yourself, or especially in a bigger car that seats 7 or 8. What was the point before though?
don't know.
Ramosha. Yeah, I mean
Yeah,
Ramosha.
that we said that he was addressing an elevator. Like I guess in those, I wonder when the tshuva was written because back in those days, there used to be a guy who operates the elevator, and
Obviously, Ramosha wasn't referring to a case in which the Jew would press any buttons or the like,
right,
because
or the the Shabbos elevator where it
yeah,
actually.
yeah, that definitely wasn't a problem, and he still held that it was an issue. Well, what's the most surprising about this is Shlomo Zalman or Bach is lenient, but it seems like most aren't going like that. But that is a surprising reality. Let's take a look at that article. Let's see if they add anything. I didn't Google anything. I didn't look anything. I did it the old-fashioned way, actually learning properly, learning through the tshuvas, see what the rabbis say. Okay, this is from the OU Shabbos doors, elevators, exercise. Yeah, they also, by the way, say automatic doors comes up. We go to the library fairly often. They have kids sections to play in, to color in. Most libraries have automatic doors, not the ones around here. Most other libraries, the libraries for some reason in the 5 towns are absolutely pathetic. The one in Hewlett's not as bad, but for the kids sections, they're lacking, that's for sure. So most libraries have automatic doors when you walk in, they just open. So that for sure is going to be a problem Tuesday and Shabbos also. Okay, what are we going through? Elevators. You may ride on an elevator if the elevator stops at all floors or a non-Jew pushes a button in order to ride the elevator himself. Not a simple ruling. We just saw most rabbis say it's a problem. Note, you may get off only on the floor at which the non-Jew stopped. You may not have him or her push the button for a different floor for you. Note, you must enter the elevator while the door is already open, but has not yet begun to close. Even if your president keeps the door open, but will not close but not if it will cause the door to open. May not ride an elevator if a Jew pushes a button. This is very controversial. They don't address many of the potential reasons that we just said. It's not simple. It's not simple at all. Not simple. I don't even care what Google says. I don't even care what AI says. Probably is going to say the wrong thing. Fact of the matter is, most rabbis prohibit it. Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was lenient. Is lenient. We saw also that other sefer, Oel Yisachar. Okay, in those cases, but for someone who's healthy, taking an elevator up a floor or two, I mean, come on. Any other questions, comments?
I don't think so. But we're not talking about a floor. I think we're talking about a floor too. I guess yeah. Bikor cholim in a hospital.
Yeah, that also. I saw in a tshuva somewhere. There's a difference between if your wife is about to go in labor She could barely walk, or she just went in labor. They don't even let them walk legally after till a certain amount of time. They have to wheel them from one room, from the room where they gave birth, to another room after recovery room for a day or whatever it is. Depends on the hospital and protocol and the time and everything. Difference between someone in a wheelchair using an elevator on Shabbos, a Shabbos elevator, versus you're a healthy husband in your 30s, in your 40s, in your 20s. It's an obvious difference between the two. Let's see how wrong. Oh, I got it right. Generally, using a regular elevator on Shabbos is discouraged by many halachic authorities. Oh, regular. However, quote, there are Shabbos elevators that are designed to operate automatically and avoid the need for pressing buttons, and these are generally permitted for use. Really? What we just learned, they're generally prohibited. Yet again, wrong. Generally prohibited. If you want to know also, all of these sources, Piskei Teshuvos brought them. It's really such a good sefer, good at collecting all of this. He brought it right over here. You should refrain going on Shabbos and Yom Tov. See, here's the Marshal, Chavkos Yaakov, Igros Moshe, in an elevator and on an escalator. Even if you're not doing malacha, nevertheless, it's a problem of disgracing Shabbos, belittling Shabbos. You could be lenient if you're sick or for a mitzvah. Many, many floors, old women, very young children, people who are weak. But a regular healthy male, you know what? I'll use the expression, man up.
Oh, man up.
Man up.
No
Look down
man.
here. Minchas Yitzchak we saw. Bear Moshe. I went through each one of these and made a PDF file. Shar Mitzion and Bel First Oilam, I couldn't find that. Stops on its own every floor, footnote 27. Quotes, Minchas Yitzchak, Shevet Alevi, Ol Yisachar. Shmir Shabbos Kochas, looked all of it up. Evan Yisrael. He wants to say it's permissible. Right. Kuchani, I didn't look up. Ravosner. Shmir Shabbos Kochasa. A lot of length. This is the general discussion about elevators. Any other questions, comments?
No.
Okay. Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we will continue. I think
But
we
it's
reached a fair conclusion.
it's interesting though, if you have let's say you have a Rav, like dying. There are, I think there's a Hasidic shtibel on the Upper West Side. Do they really have to, does a Rav have to paskin differently depending on his, I know depending on the kahila, but let's say, even like let's say there's a shtibel in Hong Kong, and that everyone lives about, the whole kahila is like no one's I mean, maybe, I don't know, Upper West Side, whatever, there's brownstones, but I'm saying there's 2-story homes, but a lot of the Mispalim, live in high rises. Does a Rav have to be makel depending on where they